Class is now in session. I'm Professor Hockey, and today we will be recapping Game 2 of the Stanley Cup Finals between the Tampa Bay Lightning and the Dallas Stars. So the Lightning looking to get on the board here after they dropped a pretty disappointing Game 1 to the Dallas Stars, and that's exactly what they would manage to do. The first period started off a bit slow, no scoring there, but halfway through it, we saw the Lightning rattle off 3 straight, coming from Point, Palat, and Shattenkirk within the span of just about 4 or 5 minutes. That would be the score at the end of the first period, 3-0. But as we've seen so many times from the Stars during these playoffs, they begin this comeback. Pavelski gets the only goal in the second period to make it 3-1. Then Janmark early in the third makes it 3-2. And honestly, I was actually kind of expecting the Dallas Stars to make the comeback in this game. As I said, they've done it so much that, why should this time be any different? But the Lightning stand their ground exceptionally well. They do add another sort of goal, though it gets called off on the correct offside challenge, a pretty obvious one at that. But in the end, the Stars are unable to get that pivotal third goal, and the Lightning get the victory to tie up this series. Good news for the Lightning, obviously, being able to get on the board early after what ended up happening in the previous game. You had gotten stumped by Khudobin, so getting 3 past him rather early was definitely a nice thing to see. And I should also mention that Andrei Vasilevsky, very good game for him as the goaltender, out-dueling Khudobin after Khudobin got the better of him in Game 1. But the big thing I do want to mention here for the Lightning is not that first period where they scored all of their goals, but actually the third period where, looking at the scoreboard, well, they didn't score any goals here and they gave up 1. Was this really that great of a period? But I have to give them big kudos for it. The first few minutes didn't necessarily go their way, and as I said, the Stars scored a goal there, but it felt as though the Lightning really got it together at that point. And watching the last few minutes of this game, it really felt as though it was the Lightning who was the team trailing by a goal compared to the Dallas Stars. The Stars really couldn't get much generated in those last few minutes. Maybe one pretty good chance in front, I think, by Jamie Benn off of a mistake from the Lightning players. But otherwise, they were really controlling the pace late in the game, and normally the score effects take a part here, and you would think the Stars would at least be getting most of the shots, but that actually did not end up being the case. So a lot of props to the Lightning for being able to do exactly that. And so, just like the previous game, they're carrying a lot of third period momentum into the following game. On the bad news side for the Lightning, it's hard to put too much bad news just for this game in general. I thought this was, especially at 5v5, a very evenly played game between these two teams. Both of these teams certainly proving that they belong to be in the Stanley Cup Finals. If there is one thing to mention here for the Lightning, it is that they ran into a bit of penalty trouble here in this second period. Yes, you could obviously argue that the refereeing was inconsistent to say the least, but in the end, the Lightning gave over 4 power plays to the Dallas Stars in the second period, and this ended up playing a huge part in why there was such a massive shot differential in that second period, because at 5v5, it was actually pretty well evenly played there, but with the power plays given to the Dallas Stars, they really pushed. That's where they scored that only goal from Pavelski there. It was on the power play, and so the Lightning will look to stay out of the box a bit more going into the following game. On the Dallas Stars side, the good news for them is that they're still playing some really solid hockey. They are not giving an inch to the Tampa Bay Lightning that the Lightning aren't earning for themselves. The Stars are right there with them every step of the way. It was just an unfortunate, I guess you could say, 4.5, 5 minute stretch where they gave up those 3 goals, because otherwise the Stars were quite solid. Khudobin was looking quite strong otherwise. And so they've proven themselves through these first couple of games, because honestly, coming in, I was unsure whether or not they'd actually be able to stand up to the Tampa Bay Lightning. I really felt as though the Lightning, while it wouldn't be an easy series for them, that they'd probably take it. But right now, it really can seemingly go either way. And I spoke too soon back in the Lightning Bruins series that one would go 7 games. And then, of course, that did not end up being the case, and the Bruins just sort of petered out and the Lightning won in 5 games. But this one here in the Stanley Cup Finals does feel like a 7-game series like we saw last year between the Blues and the Bruins, and I'd be surprised if it goes much before that. On the bad news side for the Stars, just like with the Lightning, it's kind of hard to point out too much bad news. I'll say it once, I'll say it again. This was a very well played, very evenly played game, very physical game between these two teams, and it felt as though, as sometimes it does happen in the Stanley Cup Finals when you get down to 2 really good teams left, it's sort of just the bounces which way they go on that specific night. If there is one thing I do want to see from the Dallas Stars, we've seen a couple of periods thus far during this series where the Lightning have really sort of just skated circles around the Dallas Stars, I guess you could say. The latter half of the third period tonight, you could say technically the third period in Game 1. And when you look at the periods in which the Stars have had the advantage, so for instance, period 1 and period 2 of Game 1, those weren't necessarily periods in which the Stars were just completely destroying the Lightning or anything like that, but instead it was periods where the Stars were getting goal here or there and sort of shutting down what the Lightning could do with good defensive play and great goaltending. And I don't think this is a terrible thing. Obviously, they managed to win an entire series, the Western Conference Finals, against the Golden Knights based off of this style of play. So I don't think this is something that needs to happen, but I would like to see the Stars maybe sort of step it up a tiny bit moving on into the next game. But that will do it for this recap. In terms of my prediction, I had said the Lightning would win it in 6 games. Technically still a possibility, but as I said, I cannot really see this series ending anywhere before 7 games have passed. Class dismissed.